of intelligent warehouse integration. Now that includes, MAPADOC, EDI, and then Scanco warehouse. So we'll walk you through the process of what that looks like, not only from a manual standpoint, so you can kind of have an idea of, what that process looks like without our integration solutions, and then compare that to what it would look like with our integration solutions, so you can see what we're streamlining, what we're taking out of your daily tasks to allow you to do other tasks other than EDI and manual warehousing processes. So to kind of kick it off here, what we'll walk through is, first, kind of give an introduction to who we are. So I'll start first. My name's Bill Gossett. I work for a company called SWK Technologies. We are a Sage reseller for Sage 100, 500, and X3. And we've come out with a solution now that's been out for about 20 years, really leveraging our Sage expertise with a product called MAPADOC. And MAPADOC is a fully integrated EDI solution into Sage 100, 500, and X3. And we're really able to leverage the Sage platform to streamline your EDI processes, not only inbound use, so like the PO in, but also I would say actually, in my experience, more importantly, on the way out, when you're sending those shipping documents, acknowledgments, invoices back to your customer. We're able to integrate both ways to eliminate, duplicate entries and and minimizing the possibility of errors with manual entry. So, and I'll turn it over to Devin here, who's the Director of Marketing at Scanco, to walk through Scanco and who they are.
Yeah, Scanco has been around for 25 years this year, and we're celebrating automating warehouses with fully integrated Sage 100 solutions, and being able to offer that on the iOS, Android, and Windows platform, really revolutionizing the way that we're processing transactions, picking and packing, shipping, receiving, physical counts, and a number of other enhancements, working with different modules inside of Sage 100 to be able to work together with solutions like MAPADOC to be able to create a very nice integrated supply chain that allows to leverage technology in the way that we're using and processing transactions that we all use every day. So I'll hand it back over to Bill, and if you want to take it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So Devin and myself thought it would be best to walk you through up front what the Sage 100 integrated supply chain workflow looks like from an EDI standpoint, not only bringing the orders, but shipping them, warehousing, shipping, picking and packing, and then sending that information out. So regardless of who your EDI trading partner is, you can see Home Depot, Target, Amazon on the left. It's the same process for all. We all know they have different EDI requirements depending on who the document is and what they want back. But what we really strive for is to standardize that process. So you're not having to do a totally separate process for Home Depot than you are compared to Target. Now, you can see a cloud there on your screen. That's the first process in regards to that integrated supply chain workflow. What that really means is your EDI translation, whether that's in, SPS Commerce as a cloud-based, that's able to connect to your trading partners and then bring in that information and then translate it so that MAPADOC, as the embedded EDI integration into Sage 100, is able to pull that information into the system. And so MAPADOC brings the information into the system automatically to avoid you having to manually enter your POs as sales orders in the system. MAPADOC is fully integrated, so we're able to take the POs from your customer and automatically upload those as sales orders in your system. We'll go through a demonstration later in the call to show you what that looks like. Now, once the sales orders is in the system, Sage takes over alongside Scanco. So with Sage and Scanco, you'd be picking and packing and then shipping your products through that application, and then that information with Scanco would then upload that information back into Sage, and then not only into Sage but MAPADOC as well, because the information that Scanco will be streamlining for you, the picking and packing, the quantity shipped, the items shipped, is actually information your customer is going to want back on that shipping document back on, through EDI. So MAPADOC and Scanco have a very tight integration where MAPADOC or Scanco is able to upload that information to MAPADOC to avoid you and your teams having to re-enter that information for every single shipment, because that really defeats the purpose of integration if you have two separate solutions that aren't working together in full to send back to your customer. Because at the end of the day, it is not only streamlining internally, but getting that information back to your customer in a standardized format that they require of you. And so MAPADOC is able to take that information and send it out back to your customer in the format that they want, whether that's an ASN or an invoice, back up to your customer in the format to ensure that each and every time you're sending that shipping document or invoice back to your customer, it's in the format that they require of you. So walking through that, you heard me reference before that we're actually going to show you what a process looks like in regards to warehousing without MAPADOC and Scanco. And so we thought it would be a good idea to give you a picture of what that process looks like up front so you can really compare how we streamline those functions for you. And so I'll bring up a screenshot here of the process without MAPADOC and Scanco. So you can see it's very, very extensive. There's a lot of touch points, a lot of different areas where, manually your employees are having to touch the order, touch the purchase order, and the shipment in order to get it back out of your system. And so what I'll start out with is, the process without MAPADOC and Scanco. So regardless, depending on how you're receiving your orders today, whether that's through EDI, through a web portal, through phone, email, text, etc., there's so many different ways today that you can be receiving a different order. Now, if you're a customer, and we see this on a day-to-day basis, more and more retailers and more trading partners are starting to onboard EDI. And then, but regardless, when you receive that phone or email, text, or web portal type of order, you're having to print that or record that manually and actually enter that back into Sage or into sales order entry one by one. So you're going to have to not only manually enter it, but review that information. That's including ship to location, item information, pricing, quantity, to make sure that that order that you're entering in the system is validates really what you have in your system. So that validation process is very manual. There's human intervention in that to compare what your customer has on their EDI PO compared to what you have in Sage. And so it's a very lengthy, very tedious process for you to take a manual PO, review that type of information, shipping and item information, and then manually enter it back into the system. Now, when it's in the system, regardless, it's in Sage. And so at that point, actually, I'll turn it over to Devin here to have him walk through what that process looks like on a typical basis without Scanco.
Yeah, and wow, I mean, just looking at this chart, you really see all of the pieces, including what Bill was just talking about with the initial parts, and to tell a little bit of a story as well, to put you into the eyes of someone working in the warehouse and actually doing these transactions. They're entering that purchase order in a workstation that's either more or less likely to be outside of the area of where the warehouse is. The shipment arrives at the warehouse. Those items are taken off of the truck. And here's where the part gets a little bit messy. These quantities that are received are written down on a printed purchase order, and each of these are counted. That purchase order is given back to a data entry person that's going to then go back to that other workstation, enter that PO number that had been processed into receipt of goods entry inside of Sage 100, and then manually key all these items and go back and reconcile that written on that written purchase order. And see in the green area, I've highlighted red where MAPADOC automates the process. The green is the part of where we're doing the receipt. The blue is where we go into the shipment, just to give you kind of an idea. So once we move from keying in the quantities, then we're printing the paper pick ticket to send to the shipping department. When we know that the order has been placed, we're receiving in the inventory in order to be able to process the shipment. We're picking those items off of a manual pick list. The quantities are again written down on paper, then given back to data entry personnel, and then we're entering the sales order into shipping data entry or invoice data entry inside of Sage 100, keying in the quantities, and then we've completed the receive and ship process. And from that point, we'll go into where Bill will talk a little bit about how it will look after it goes through the receive and ship process through a manual part of what you would have to do should you not have an EDI integration.
Exactly. So thanks, Devin. So I think, Devin went through the portion of actually, walking through that information in Sage, right? So having to manually key it, not only from receipt of goods, but, through shipping data entry. And now it's not only one thing you have to do it within Sage, it's another thing to get it back to your customers. So, let's just say you're using a web forms portal to use a type of, through, manual EDI. And so not only are you going to have to take that information, and enter it back into that web portal and tell us how it's packed, but you're also going to have to print your labels and then also manually enter any sort of tracking or carrying information. So you can really see that double entry in regards to not only are you manually doing it within Sage today, but you're also having to manually enter it back up into that portal, whether that's your customer's portal or a third-party portal, or even if you're emailing or faxing those types of shipment documentations to them. It's a very manual process. And so not only is it manual in the ASN, but once you send out that shipment and you send out that shipping document from a manual standpoint back to your customer, probably the most important for you is sending back that invoice, right? Because you need to get paid. And so not only are you going to have to invoice within Sage, so review your invoices and then update and post your sales order journal within Sage 100, but even when that's done, you're going to have to go through another process of actually sending those invoices out via email or fax or to that web portal. So you can really see that double entry not only on the shipping side, but on the invoicing side as well. And so I think that myself and Devin really wanted to show you what that process looks like without MAPADOC, so you can really see how expensive it can be. Now, we've also created a process chart of what it looks like with MAPADOC. So you can see
nice.
Much cleaner. Thanks, Devin.
I like this one.
Absolutely. And so, what we'll walk through up front is that, we'll kind of start from square one again, bringing in that PO and creating that order in the system. Now, MAPADOC does have the full capability of taking down your EDI POs and automatically creating those orders in your system, and so without any intervention on your part. So not only are we entering those POs in your system, but we do have the full. We also validate those orders as well. So a lot of that manual intervention you're having to do today, from a manual standpoint of reviewing quantity, reviewing price, reviewing ship-to codes or shipping locations, MAPADOC is able to validate that information compared to what you have in Sage. And so not only are we integrating those that are avoiding or eliminating that process of you having to manually enter the order, we're also validating those orders in order to ensure that any order in your system or any sales order being created in your system is a valid sales order. So you can go ahead and then run through the Scanco process, which I'll let Devin here walk through from an integrated standpoint with Scanco.
And you can see we try to retain the shape of what the other process flow look like, so you can really see how many squares of that process are missing. When the shipment arrives at the warehouse after it's entered in from MAPADOC, those items are scanned via barcode with a handheld unit, which automatically updates the receipt of goods entry within Sage 100 and then allows the pick and pack to be performed from the handheld and packed in and for shipment. Again, automatically updating shipping data entry inside of Sage 100. So the amount of steps that are saved in this process have a lot to do with the manual entry and the errors that are involved in the process of writing something down on a piece of paper, having the printing of those pieces of paper, and keeping track of all of these things when the warehouse only has to maintain each user having a handheld device to be able to process the orders that they have placed in there. And they can go through, as you'll see on the demonstration, you'll see that the orders that are available to be shipped or received are linked in, integrated with Sage 100, where everything is going to show up right when you need it. That is the end of the receive and ship process, and then we'll take it back over to Bill for invoicing.
Yeah, so when Scanco, sends back that shipping information back up to Sage into shipping data entry, we have a very tight integration with Scanco. So not only are they sending it back to shipping data entry, but you can see here in the bottom, middle, it also updates that information into MAPADOC automatically. And that includes all of your the quantities, how it's packed. So you don't need to go in and manually tell it how it's packed either. And then also, if you're having to ship to a DC or store, and that customer requires you to print a UCC 128 label, not only is Scanco uploading that information automatically, but at the same time, if that label is required for that particular customer, we would auto print the UCC 128 labels as well. And then at that point, if you have your tracking numbers integrated into Sage through like a Starship application or a direct integration with WorldShip or FedEx, we're also able to pull those tracking numbers over automatically as well, then auto assign that to the ASN. So really, we're really streamlining that process, so that all that information that your customer is requiring you, that we're pulling from Scanco, and then MAPADOC is able to pull from Sage or a third-party application like Starship. We're able to send that out on the ASN through EDI in one interface. You don't have to go to a separate interface to process your EDI. And so really at this point, I think that we're ready now to really show you what that process looks like. It's one thing to explain it and show you some process flows, but Devin and I thought it would be great to show you what that process actually looks like. And so what we'll walk through here today is, bringing in an EDI PO, creating that Sage sales order, Then I'm actually going to turn it over to Devin to walk through, his process with regards to receipt of goods and picking and shipping that type of information. And then we'll show you how it integrates with MAPADOC and then sending out to ASN, and then we'll close it out with the invoices. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pull up MAPADOC, or I'm going to pull up my Sage 100 system here, and I'm going to show you what the process looks like with MAPADOC in regards to our sales order creation. Now, this is a Sage 100 5.0 system. The processes are the same if you're using, 4.5 or 2014. But, I think it would be good to go out through this, at least the 5.0 version, because of the fact that Sage came out with these very pretty visual process flows that we can use from a visual standpoint to walk you through the steps. But before I do that, if you're not familiar, again, with MAPADOC, we are totally embedded in the Sage platform. So you can see here we're just like any other module within Sage under sales order. We don't conflict. We don't overwrite. We really leverage the Sage platform to streamline your EDI. And the order processing is a very simple process. You heard me reference before that we are able to not only, integrate those orders in your system, but do that automatically as well. So we're able to reach up to that cloud-based EDI solution if you're using that type of EDI translation, an on-premise type of EDI translation, and pull those orders down automatically. So through that receive EDI function. And then we validate. This is where we really differentiate from other customers in the Sage channels. We validate the orders before we actually create them. You heard me reference, we validate item codes to make sure that correct items are being populated on the sales order. Ship to codes if you're maintaining ship to codes. But really we have the ability to validate a lot of different things with those items, and ship to codes are some of the most common that we're able to validate against to ensure that we're populating the correct shipping location and item codes on your system. And then if MAPADOC doesn't find any issues from an automated standpoint, we create the orders automatically in your system. And then when we do that, we provide you some different reporting. And now all reporting that MAPADOC leverages is based off of Crystal. So any workstation that has Crystal reports on it, which I'm assuming almost everyone does, we're able to view these reports. And what MAPADOC does is we break out the orders by trading partner and then by PO number. So you can see here that, we brought down 5 POs in. The first PO, we tell you the PO number, and then we tell you the correlating sales order number that goes with it, and then we're able to report any item price mismatches. So we're able to take the price you have on your, on the EDI PO, or the price you guys have set up in Sage, and we're able to go with special pricing as well. So if you have special pricing for customer A compared to customer B, we're going to look into that. We're not universal. We're very trading partner specific, because we understand that each trading partner has separate rules, not only from an EDI standpoint, but and then also the pricing and shipping and everything of that nature. And so not only will we provide you a report really that shows you what we just created, but we also provide you a report that is a high-level kind of batch summary report as well, that just gives you a quick snapshot of what you process in your system. Now, if you're using Paperless Office today, these reports can be directly linked to Paperless Office. They can be emailed or saved to a PDF. And then also, we're able to auto-print these if you're set up for automation at the time that we create the order. And so, and what I mean by that is I'd say about 60% of our customer base is set up for full automation. They don't want to touch a thing. They receive an email saying, hey, the order's out there. And then within a matter of minutes, MAPADOC validates and creates those orders in the sales order entry. But some of our customers like to have a little bit more control as well, so they can come into here and click Receive EDI, and then MAPADOC will actually run you through the steps. If they recognize that there's any POs out there to be brought down, MAPADOC is very intuitive, so it'll run you through the steps automatically. Now, real quickly, I'm going to pull up one of the sales orders that we created to show you what exactly we did. Again, this is a standard sales order and sales order entry. We're following the same rules and logic as if you're manually entering the sales order, so we're not going to populate any information magically. If it doesn't reside within Sage, we're not just going to, so if an invalid item comes up, we're not going to populate an invalid item. But really what I want to show you here is, we really have the ability to pick and choose what information you want from the EDI PO. So typically that would, consist of order date, obviously populating the correct customer number, PO number. Now there's one field here that I want to point out, that's department number. There's a lot of fields in the EDI world that Sage does not have a standard placement for, whether that be, department number, vendor number, even something as common as EPC code. What we do is, since it's so common in EDI, we capture that information on the import process, so when we're creating that sales order for you. And then when you're sending out that correlating ASN and invoice or any other document that requires it, which we'll show you here later on, we're just turning that information around. So really that means two things to you. One is you don't need to maintain that information. And then two, you don't need to worry about if it's required or not. And that's our job as your EDI consultants, to recognize what's required and what's not. We work with different trading partners every single day, so we understand the requirements, we understand their standards. So that's really what I wanted to show you here today, is how we take that transact that EDI PO and bring it into the system as a sales order. So at this point, I'm actually going to turn it over to Devin to walk through Scanco's process in regards to receipt of goods and shipping the order as well.
All right, so here we are on my desktop. I wanted to show you kind of a glimpse of what the device looks like, and right here on the screen, this is what I'm using. It's an iPod that has an integrated scan sled that is adding the barcode functionality to our iOS device. And I have that live streaming here. You can also see that I have our instance of our demo server here of Sage 100. So all of this that I'm going to be entering and going to be showing to you, like Bill was demonstrating, is going to be everything is going to be actually coming from a Sage 100 installation that we have here. So just to show you how everything works together, this is a live demo. So part of the process, I want to take a moment to step back a little bit into what we were talking about in that flow chart, and how all of those manual processes were really bogging down the operation, creating a lot of inaccuracies and everything in a non-automated warehouse. What Scanco focuses on is creating an application that's intuitive, beautiful, and easy to use, and it's based off of a touchscreen interface. And the software that we've developed for Sage over the years, it's built on a very similar platform, but we've adapted it to really update our software for the needs of our customers as we're moving into the 21st century and looking at different ways of managing warehouses and looking at barcodes. So I'm going to go through the transactions of doing the receipt, and I've made this synonymous with what Bill has in his system. So as you go through, this is going to be the same process, same thing that you're going to see with his. So I'm going to go ahead and scan a batch number, create a new batch, and we're going to scan our purchase order number. All of these items are barcoded and being sent from the scanner. Now, when it goes through the interface, those of you who have not had a chance to see Scanco Warehouse before, we operate off of what we call a waterfall effect. And as we need items to be selected, they show up in a format that only shows the information on the screen. That's what's needed from the user, to make it even that much easier for them to be able to interact with Scanco Warehouse and be able to know what it is that they have to scan in order to move to the next step. When we get to the item screen, at the bottom you'll see there's a few different ways that we can proceed at this point. I can scan with the scan gun like I've been doing, and it will automatically enter the quantity into the item. I can key it in with an on-screen keyboard or a native keyboard, depending on what device you're using, or I can use a lookup feature, which is going to tell us what items are outstanding on the purchase order that need to be received. You can see here that if we were in the warehouse and we had a shipment coming in, we can look and see what items were here, what was ordered, and physically look to see what the things are that we need to take out of that shipment and add into the handheld here so that it will get sent back into Sage 100. So I will act as if we scan this item off of the shipment. It's going to ask us for a quantity. We'll go ahead and receive that in full. It's going to validate that anything that I scan is an item that is on this purchase order, and if it's not, just like Bill's software, it's going to make sure that what I'm doing is foolproof by not allowing me to misenter information, not able to receive more items than we have on the order, if that's how we set it up to on the other end. And you'll see we have everything set up to be able to make certain modifications to that. We have a profile that we can configure Scanco Warehouse to act differently in this purchase order receiving. We don't have prompt for outstanding lines or allowing over receipts. So if I try to enter a quantity in that's more than what's listed on this purchase order, it is going to give me an error. So at this point, when I go and do the lookup feature, it's going to show me that there's nothing left on the screen. So we know that we can send that in to Sage 100. It's going to ask us if we're ready to apply to the server, and we click yes. This has successfully been submitted, and if you look over to the left-hand side of record selected on my unattended barcode transaction import there, it has imported that record and reflected the changes inside of Sage 100. So I'm going to go back out of the purchase order, and now we're going to go into the shipment piece. And this is where we're going to be integrating in at the very end with the invoicing and with MAPADOC. So we'll scan our batch, we'll create a new batch, enter our shipper ID, and again, the interface looks very similar throughout all of the different modules. That way it's so much easier to be able to go through and figure out what you need to scan and where. It's going to ask us what box we'd like to place the item into. We'll select the first box. And again, if we go to the lookup, we'll see what it is that we need to do. Now we can select, instead of scanning, if we chose to, the item that'll allow it to automatically populate and see. We can see a picture of the item, what warehouse it's located in, the unit of measure that we're currently counting in the bin, and the quantity shipped versus ordered. I'm going to enter a quantity of 2. It's going to write that information. Now I can select the next box to pack it in, and you'll see that it automatically increments the box number. We can scan the second item, and as we scan that, I scan the same one, so we'll go back, scan the other item, just clear that out, scanning the other item, and you'll see there the quantity shipped versus ordered. We'll go ahead and select 2. And now when we go to the lookup feature, it's going to tell us that there's no unresolved items left in the sales order. We can also go back and from the handheld level review via a lookup and see what it is that we did in that order, and we can go through and remove or change any of these things in case there was an error or something made on the user level. We'll go back and again finally send to the server, and at this point we would select the ASN label shipment button that would allow us to send the information over to MAPADOC. And before I hand it over back over to Bill, I just wanted to take a second, since I'm kind of stepping away from the process, but I wanted to show you, since I've not shown this on a live demo before, that we do have an online training portal for our software. So even though it is intuitive and easy to use, we have a lot of resources that distinguish us to be able to allow your users to be able to learn how to use the software as well as get involved with transactions and whatnot. So this interface, our portal that allows us to modify this, the integration with Sage 100, and also the transactions that we're performing on the handheld really give you an idea of where Scanco Warehouse excels in taking that process flow that we talked about before and eliminating a lot of those steps and adding a lot of intuitiveness to the process. Now I'm going to go ahead and put the screen back over to Bill and allow him to finish up.
Perfect. Thanks, Devin. So, guys, like Devin said, we have that very tight integration with Scanco, so the information is able to send back up not only to shipping data entry, but we take it within MAPADOC as well. Now, Sage out of the box is not geared for EDI, and secondly, certainly not geared for sending out ASNs. ASNs are the most complex EDI document. They are exposed to chargebacks. They have the most complex requirements. So what we have built is our own ASN module within MAPADOC that not only works alongside Scanco and other third-party solutions, but also Sage as well. So when Scanco submits that order or submits that shipment back up into Sage and MAPADOC, it's going to bring it into our ASN module. And so depending on regardless if you're using, if you have shipments that need a UCC 128 label, once they're brought into MAPADOC, it's going to do 2 things. One, it's going to take it how it was packed from Scanco. So you can see here we have those 4 items that Devin packed in 2 separate cases, and then we'll auto-calculate the weight for you if you have weights in shipping at entry, or we're also able to take the weights by auto-calculating based on your weight setup in Sage. And then also at the same time this is brought in, if your customer requires that UCC 128 label, we've auto-print that UCC 128 label to your label printer on site. So we really streamline that process in regards to packing and also printing of your EDI labels as well. So at this point in the process, we have our labels printed, our orders packed, So we're actually ready to create our ASNs, and MAPADOC has a very handy solution that allows you to create multiple ASNs for multiple customers at once. This is called ASN Auto Select. So here you can see there's a lot of different selection criteria that you can choose from in regards to customer number, sales order number, ship date, ship to code. But we also have a handy little button down here called multiple orders. This shows you any order that has been sent back up from Scanco that you have not created an ASN for as of yet. And again, we're only going to take orders that are for EDI customers, so you don't need to worry about us conflicting between EDI and non-EDI orders. But you can see here we had 5 orders available. Now here's the one that Devin sent back up to the system, so we're able to select it. It'll ask us, are you sure you want to select this order? We'll click yes here. At that point in time, I've just created my ASN. Now, if you have tracking, integrated into Sage, we're able to pull that tracking information over through that process I just showed you, so you don't need to manually enter that type of information. Or if you have a third-party application, again, like Starship, we're able to pull that over as well. So what we really streamline what we really started to streamline at MAPADOC is for you not to have to enter any additional information as necessary, or if necessary, because if we're able to pull it from Sage, there's no reason that you have to manually enter that information over and over again. So I'm specifically talking about tracking numbers right now, but we're certainly able to pull that information over. So at this point in time, our ASNs have been, our orders have been packed, we printed our labels, we created our ASN with the tracking pulled over from Sage. Now we're actually ready to send it out, and that's done through this Create Outbound ASN button. This actually is where you're sending out the ASNs from your system. So you do not need to go to a separate interface to send out your ASNs. It's directly built within MAPADOC here within Sage. And now, with the most recent versions of Sage of 2013, 2014, MAPADOC has the ability not to send out any documents that are missing any sort of required information. So we know the requirements of the trading partner. That's what we're good at. And so we're not going to we have the ability to stop any ASNs from going out with missing information. So that could be, tracking number. Let's just say a tracking number was pulled over from Sage. It could happen. If you're doing a lot of ASNs today, that may happen, here and there. But we have the ability to stop that ASN and then send any other ASNs out of the system that are in compliance with your trading partner. Really what that means for you is any ASN you send out of your system is going to meet your trading partner's requirements. So here I can go by trading partner if I'd like. So if you're creating multiple ASNs from multiple trading partners at a time, you can list those out here. We can do all trading partners at once. So what I can do is I can click proceed here, and what that just did was that sent up the that one ASN to that EDI translation, whether that's a cloud-based or whatever it may be. If it's cloud-based, it will be directly sent to the cloud-based solution and then sent directly to your trading partner. And that cloud-based solution will also do validation on their end to, think of them as another safety net to ensure that that information you set on your system also meets the requirements of your trading partner. So again, it really ensures that any ASN you send out of your system is going to meet your trading partner's requirement. That's very important because, again, you hear me, this is probably the 3rd time I've said this, is the ASN, you're very exposed to chargebacks. So we want to ensure that every ASN you send to your system meets your trading partner's requirements. So at this point, we've created our ASNs, we sent them out, and now we're ready to actually invoice our customers, right? And so you can see a prompt here asking, do you want to create invoices? This actually, if you're using Scanco and MAPADOC, this wouldn't actually prompt you because when the shipping information that Scanco is sending back up to MAPADOC and shipping data entry is also creating your invoice batches in your system. So what this prompt really means is this is for our customers that aren't using shipping data entry. We actually have the ability to create invoices in your system off the ASNs you sent to avoid our customers having to go one by one for each invoice based off that sales order. So I'm going to click no here and then walk into the invoicing process. Now, the invoicing process is probably my favorite part because it's the quickest. Invoicing is very simple with MAPADOC in regards to sending your invoices out through EDI. It's all based off your invoice in Sage. So where MAPADOC takes over is after you post and update your sales order journal. So once you post and update your sales order journal, MAPADOC is going to do 2 things. The first is it's going to look into those invoices that just posted to identify if any of those are for an EDI customer. And if they are, it's going to pull out those specific invoices. And then secondly, once we select those invoices, we're going to auto-send those for you as well. So what that means for you is there's no additional steps that you need to do to send out your invoice via EDI outside of what you're already doing today in Sage. We're just going to leverage that process and use that as the trigger, if you will, to send out the invoices via EDI if they're set up for an EDI customer. So you can really see the ease of use in regards to sending out your invoices via EDI. Now, if you ever need to resend an invoice, let's just say a customer said they never received it. Again, it's happened. Resending invoices through MAPADOC is very simple. Any invoice in history for an EDI customer is always available for resending at any point in time, no matter how many times it's been resent. So you can come in here and enter the invoice number, the invoice date, customer number, a range of sales orders. Again, you have a range of selection criteria to use to identify which invoices you want to send out. And then once you have that, you made your selection, you'll be able to click proceed here and then send out your invoices to your customer. And so really, I mean, that's the process that we really wanted to go through is, bringing in that order in your system from an integrated fashion, shipping it from an integrated fashion, not only through Scanco, but getting back that information to your customer. Then at the end of the day, getting paid by your customer by setting up that invoice in an integrated fashion. So I know we have a couple more slides that we wanted to show you here. So I'm going to turn it back over to Devin so we can walk through some of those slides and you can see here what we have to say.
Yeah, I just want to say too, one of the most exciting things to talk about is MAPADOC Connections is actually going on next week. Scanco is a proud sponsor of MAPADOC Connections, and we're just real excited to be over there, and I'll let Bill talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so thanks, Devin, for selling that for us. Actually, next week, guys, we're having our second annual MAPADOC Connections conference, and that's in Chicago. I mean, last year it was in Chicago again. It's a really nice place and really great forum for users, future prospects, future users to really network not only with current users of Sage, current users of MAPADOC, but partners like Scanco and partners like SPS and Starship. So you really get to see how close we are, not only from a technology standpoint, but from a relationship standpoint as well with these partners and resellers in the Sage network. So if you guys are in the Chicago area, we really push you to come. Even though it's about 5 days away, if you're somewhat interested, I can send you the early bird discount. I mean, we can have the early bird discount go up to a day. So certainly contact me. I'll give you my information after the call. Or if you want to just get away for a week and come to Chicago and have a good time in the Windy City, certainly stop by. We'd love to see you.
And I think that concludes our presentation. Our information is here for email addresses, and we'll hand it over to Adrian to conclude the webinar.
Thank you guys so much. Wonderful presentation. I'd like to launch a couple polls while we're answering questions. We have a couple questions. And I do have the first poll here. If the audience could just take a second to answer this question, are you interested in learning more about MAPADOC EDI and what you just saw? If you could just take a moment to answer that. And let's see, Robbie, thank you for your question. Can you configure Scanco to pre-fill quantities of a particular item upon scanning as opposed to entering quantity manually?
The answer is yes. That would be a modification that would be outside the normal parameters of how Scanco would function, but we can modify the software to be able to perform that. So if that's something that you'd be interested in, it would be good for us to talk about how we would get it to work and talk a little bit about the different things that you have and problems you're facing we can solve with getting that automatically entered.
And he did clarify a little bit on that question of pre-packs. It's based on item pre-packs, Devin?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be something we talk about offline so that we can get a little bit more information about how you're currently managing it. The big key, that's the beauty of Scanco in general, is that we're automating what's going on inside of Sage 100. So it's very likely that the process that you're using now, if you're happy with it and it's working well for you, we will be able to mimic those actions and just automate the process so that you eliminate all of the manual entry problems and all of those steps we talked about in that previous slide with the flows of the manual entry of MAPADOC and Scanco.
And then if I could just remind the audience, we do have a poll running. I see 57% of you have voted. If you could just take a moment to answer this question. I do have one other poll after this, if you could bear with us for that. And Devin and Bill, can Scanco upload locations? All of our stock is driven by locations. Thanks, Charles.
If you mean if by location you're meaning the warehouse it's located in, then most certainly. I'd have to see what you'd have to say about that, Bill.
Yeah, so in regards to MAPADOC bringing in the order, what we're going to default is when we bring in the order is the actual default warehouse, whether that's for that customer or for that ship to specific location. And then that way you certainly have the ability to manually change the order once the order is imported through MAPADOC.
Yeah, and the Scanco has the functionality to be able to see multiple warehouses a night. It was one of the items that showed up on while we were using the scan gun, but it wasn't something that I had highlighted to be able to select in different modules, allow different levels of that, and we can also, in that portal that I showed, it's customizable, so you can have prompts appear in certain parts of the modules that that you can set up based on your preferences and configuration.
And when it comes to implementation, do you work together implementing this solution, or do we work through our reseller?
Devin, you want me to answer this one, or?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so we it depends on we certainly work together. You know, there's certain testing that we would want to accommodate to ensure that the information is going back and forth, and then we have certain consultants that have a specific niche with that. So we certainly understand our strengths. So we certainly work together. We're not leveraging the reseller to do any of this. From a pure MAPADOC perspective, our implementations are full turnkey, so we're doing all the testing, all the implementation. So we're not leveraging the reseller to do anything of that nature, and that's the same methodology we're looking at with Scanco. We'll work together with Scanco to test to ensure that that implementation on your system is working in the way that we showed you today. So we don't leverage, unless they request to, we don't leverage there's no need to leverage the reseller to do any of the testing or implementation.
And then we have another question here, and I just want to remind the audience that we have a poll up. We have a new poll. Are you interested in learning more about Scanco's receiving and shipping automation? If you could take a moment just to answer that poll, that would be great. We have a few more questions here. For bulk shipment, how to print out pick ticket? Thank you, Francis. So how do you print out a pick ticket for a bulk shipment? Scanco, Devin?
It sounds to me like I'm trying to think about how to answer that question. It sounds to me like you're asking, that would be something that you would be printing from Sage 100, if I'm understanding the question correctly. So that would be something that you'd be doing inside of there. If that's what you're asking, the pick ticket itself is not printed from the handheld device. We can print barcodes from the handheld device if you're fixing those. I don't know if there's something in MAPADOC that answers that.
No, Devin, you kind of hit it right in the head. That pick ticket is more of a Sage function. So once the order's in the system, that's where you'll be able to print that pick ticket or pick sheet. So once we input the order, really Sage takes over for that type of process.
You're like the Sage 100 master. Thank you.
That's what experience does for you.
Right.
Years of experience. Okay, so locations in the warehouse for each item, not just the warehouse. We might have 10,000 gallons that have to be put away in different bins.
If it is, go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's in addition to, can Scanco upload locations? All of our stock is driven by locations. And then, Charles, thank you for adding this. Locations in the warehouse for each item, not just the warehouse. We might have 10,000 gallons that have to be put away in different bins.
I see. Okay, so it sounds to me like what you're asking is a multi-bin system, if that's what level of organization you're talking about in the warehouse. And in that case, we do have integrations with multi-bin systems to be able to add that level in there, where you can select where these are going inside and what bin locations they're actually going to be assigned to. So the answer is yes.
And Eric, thank you for this question. This is for you, Bill. Can MAPADOC work with third-party EDI providers? We're currently using a web-based provider, DI Central, to facilitate EDI transactions.
Yeah. So Eric, when you heard me reference cloud-based, we work with SPS Commerce and DI Central. We have clients on both, and so we leverage those for the cloud-based type type of EDI solutions that we also work with on-premise, but we certainly work with DI Central as well. So.
And then how do I know which bin location to pick if print out ticket is in mass 100 or mass 90? And I think that one is in addition to, for bulk shipment, how to print out pick ticket. So then how do I know which bin location to pick if pick ticket is in Sage 100?
So when you're defining the report that you're printing out, those pick tickets that you're printing with crystal reports, you would just allow that parameter for it to tell you what the bin location is of that item, and then that item would be just listed next to its bin location depending on how you wanted it set up. I would say that this type of thing is a great question to ask of resellers as well, since they're going to work specifically with you on getting all of the information as far as printing out these tickets and using them. We can help you with getting barcodes on those pick tickets. Should you want to use a paper pick ticket and barcode it, that's something that is that can be done out of the box with Sage 100 now. So that would be something that would be great to get your reseller involved and ask some questions on too, and figure out ways of doing it better.
And audience, if you have any more questions, please go ahead and indicate your question. I am not seeing any other questions, Bill and Devin, yet. I just want to thank everybody for joining us. I'm going to close this last poll out so we can share Bill and Devin's contact information. It's on the screen. And then also I will be sending out a follow-up email with the recording for this webinar along with Bill and Devin's contact information should anyone have any questions after the webinar. And it looks like we do have one more question here. Let's see. I closed out my questions, so let me find that.
I just want to say that I'm loving all these questions. This is really, really good.
Let's see. I'm going to go over to my other computer because my question window just disappeared, so hold on one sec, bear with me. I'm going to bring that up. Let's see, questions.
I think I can see it here too, Adrian, if you don't have it.
Okay.
The question's from Charles. He says, can you receive more items than is on the purchase order? We often receive extra. And that would be a question for me, and the answer is yes. In the portal where I referred to toward the end of my demonstration, there is each of the modules have customization levels that will allow you to select whether or not you can over-receive, and it's just simply a checkbox, and you can assign that for certain users or have it as a global setting, so you can most definitely do an over-receipt.
Perfect. So it doesn't look like we have any more questions. And everybody, thank you so much again for joining us this Friday afternoon. We really appreciate your time and spending an hour with us. We know you're busy. We will be back in touch with you, and have a wonderful weekend. Devin and Bill, thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a great time. Thank you so much.
All right, take care, everybody.